Welcome to Finance 101 with Professor Kobe. Today's lesson is all about the importance of interest rate hedging. You may think it sounds confusing, but don't worry. We're going to break this down and make it really simple. First, what does interest rate mean? An interest rate is the amount charged, expressed as a percentage of principal by a lender to the borrower for the use of assets. So what? Well, let's take a look at a really simple example. Let's say that I, Mr. Poor, borrow from Mr. Moneybags 1,000 baht for 1 year at a 3% fixed rate. This means that in December, I must pay back Mr. Moneybags the 1,000 Thai baht principal plus 30 baht for interest fees. You can see here that I get the benefit of cash for a year, and Mr. Moneybag receives a fee for allowing me to borrow his money. However, during this time, interest rates could change, meaning not only do I face interest rate risk, but so does the lending party. The up and down fluctuations of interest rates creates a lot of unhedged or unprotected risk. Now let's take a look from the perspective of Mr. Poor. We can see the potential pitfalls of unhedged interest rate risk by looking at the alternative outcomes. If interest rates rise during the year from the base 3% to 5%, I could have paid an extra 2%. On the other hand, if interest rates fell by 2%, I would have paid an extra 2% or 20 baht. You may be thinking, so what? So what that I could have saved or paid an extra 20 baht? But what happens if we look from the bank's perspective, Bay Bank, and they were not lending to us, a small consumer, but rather a large corporation that took a loan of 1 billion plus our same interest rate of 3% per year? Same thing happens, and at year end, the company will pay back the principal plus interest. However, the only problem is that the plus or minus 2% in interest rate changes is now equivalent of 20 million. Now that's a lot of money and a lot of unhedged risk. Oh my god. This is where interest rate risk exists, on interest-bearing assets. Hedging this risk basically reduces or eliminates the risk. Interest rate risk management of financial institution scales can be the difference between a company's success and a company's failure.
Forwards and futures contracts are the most basic interest rate management product, based on the idea of an agreement today, for an exchange of something at a specific future date. However, you might be wonder how they are used to hedge interest rate risk. So, we will show you by giving two examples of instruments in this category, to illustrate how forwards and futures eliminate the risk. Let's start from Euro-Dollar Futures. Euro-Dollar Futures Contract is a futures contract on the interest that will be paid by someone who borrows at the Euro-Dollar interest rate on $1 million. So, each contract has a notional or face value of $1 million as well. And it will be 3-month period contract. As you can see from the calculation, change in 1 basis point in interest rate will result in gain or loss of $25. Suppose the investor wants to lock the interest rate on a principal of $1 million for 3-month period. So he buy one contract. On 1st of January, Euro-Dollar interest rate equals to 3.5%. So, quote price is 100 minus 3.5, which is equal to 96.5, meaning investor can lock the interest rate at 3.5% per annum, and interest earned on this amount will be $8,750. On March 31st, Euro-Dollar rate is 2.6%. So, settlement price will be 100 minus 2.6, which is equal to 97.4. Therefore, the investor gains 2,250 on the contract, and 6,500 on 3-month investment. The gain bring this up to 8,750. It appears that the futures trade perfectly lock the interest rate at 3.5%. So, interest rate risk disappears. However, in the real world, hedging is less than perfect, regarding time value money. Next, we talking about forward rate agreement. Forward rate agreement, or FRA, is forwards contract, where gain or loss is determined by interest rate. Under this agreement, one party pays fixed rate, while receiving float rate, and vice versa. The actual payments are calculated based on a notional principal amount, and paid at intervals determined by the parties. Let's see how it works. Suppose there are two parties, Mr. A and Mr. B, borrower and lender. Mr. A asks Mr. B whether he can borrow 1 million for 1 year at LIBOR rate, which is now 5%. And Mr. A said, okay. He will grant the loan for Mr. B. Then, Mr. A just realizes that LIBOR might go up or down within 1 year. So he is now facing with interest rate risk. To hedge this risk, Mr. A invites Mr. C to join 1 year FRA contract with 1 million notional amount. Mr. C said, okay, he accepts the deal, where he will pay Mr. A 5% fixed rate and Mr. A will pay him LIBOR rate. And Mr. A now becomes happy. Suppose LIBOR goes up to 6% when 1 year pass. Mr. A will pay Mr. B 6%. On the other hand, Mr. B supposes to pay Mr. C 6% and he will get 5% back. But only net amount will be paid, so Mr. C will get 1% from Mr. B. Finally, Mr. B will get net 5% interest rate, so net amount he will get in 1 year is $50,000. Let's see another case. Suppose LIBOR goes down to 4%. So, Mr. A will pay Mr. B 4%, and Mr. B will pay Mr. C 4%. But, again, only net amount will be paid. Finally, Mr. B will get net 5% interest rate, and net amount he will get is $50,000, which is equal to the previous case. As you can see, no matter what the case is, Mr. B will gain 5% fixed rate as he determined. So, interest rate risk is now gone.
Hello. Are you free? Can you teach me interest rate hedging, please?
Sorry, but I have a date tonight, so I'm kind of busy right now. Well, I have a video about interest rate hedging with option though, so I will share it to you on Google Drive. Alright? Give me a sec. I think it's here. Okay, send it. Check your Google Drive.
Yeah, I got it.
Got it yet?
Yeah, thank you. Enjoy
Alright.
the date.
You're welcome. Thanks. Bye. So we're going to talk about option. Option is an agreement that gives the right to the option holder, and it is not an obligation. There are two types of option, call and put. Call is the right to buy something, depends on the agreement, and put is the right to sell something, depends on the agreement as well. Now let us take a look at some example.
Oh look, it's Mr. A. He's an ice cream lover. He comes here every week to buy a scoop of ice cream. Let's make him look happy. Look at the price of an ice cream. One scoop is 100 baht. And Mr. A also has 100 baht as well. Now Mr. A is worried about the price of ice cream next week. If it is going up, then he will not be able to buy it. So he decided to make a contract with the ice cream seller. Hello there. Next week, can I buy a scoop of ice cream for 100 baht? Well, okay, I will give you this contract, but you have to give me 5 baht first.
Now let's see how do we call this information in an option contract. Next week is called expiration date. One scoop is the quantity that's specified in the contract. 100 baht is the strike price. Lastly, 5 baht is the premium. After we know all the terms in an option contract, let's take a look at the scenario where next week the price of an ice cream goes up to 200 baht per scoop. Since Mr. A has the call option contract, so he can exercise his right to buy a scoop of ice cream for 100 baht. And the ice cream seller is going to be sad because she cannot sell at 200 baht. She had to sell at 100 baht for Mr. A. The total price that he paid for this scoop was 105 baht because of the 5 baht premium that he has already paid last week. And this is still a better deal for him because he doesn't have to pay the full price, which is 200 baht. The second scenario is when the price is going down to 50 baht per scoop. Remember that option is the right, not an obligation, so Mr. A doesn't have to use or exercise his call option contract. Mr. A can buy a scoop of ice cream at 50 baht directly because it is cheaper than exercise the option and pay at 100 baht for a scoop of ice cream. However, the total price that he paid for this scoop was 55 baht because of the 5 baht premium that he has already paid last week. Put option is the same as the call option except it is the right to sell with a specific quantity, strike price, expiration date, and premium. Let's take a look at interest rate hedging by using call option. Mr. A is going to borrow money next month for 1 million baht and the interest rate on the contract is 3%. So next month, if the interest rate is greater than 3%, he will exercise the option, and this area will be his gain. However, when we put the premium into the payoff graph, the light green area will be the net gain. Let's take a look at the put contract. So in this case, Mr. A is going to lend money next month for 1 million baht, and the interest rate on the contract is 3%. So next month, if the interest rate is lower than 3%, he will exercise the option, and this area will be his gain. However, when we put the premium into the payoff graph, the light green area will be the net gain. Let's take a look at cap, floor, and collar. Cap is the maximum, floor is the minimum, collar is the combination of the two. We are going to look at a perspective of bond issuers for an example of cap. In this example, we are going to use LIBOR plus 2% to be a coupon payment. Coupon payment is an expense that bond issuers have to pay at the end of each period. So the risk is the interest rate, or in this case LIBOR, goes up because they will have to pay more coupon. Let's look at a cap example where the maximum coupon is 8%. The coupon equals LIBOR plus 2%. The first situation is where LIBOR equals 3%. The coupon that we have to pay is 3% plus 2% equals 5%. This is lower than 8%, so it's okay. The second situation is where LIBOR equals 7%, so the coupon that we have to pay is 7% plus 2% equals 9%. And it is greater than our cap, so the total that we have to pay is only 8%. We are going to look at a perspective of bondholders for an example of floor. So suppose the coupon payment is the same, but the risk of the bondholder is that the interest rate is going down. Let's look at the floor example where the minimum coupon payment equal to 5%. The first situation is where LIBOR equal to 2%, so the coupon equal to 2 plus 2 equal 4%. This is lower than 5% or our floor. The coupon payment that the bondholder is going to get is equal to 5%. Next is where the LIBOR equal to 6%. In this case, the coupon is going to be 6% plus 2% or equal to 8%. This is greater than 5%, so it is okay. Collar is cap plus floor, so it contains both maximum and minimum. Here 8% is cap and 5% is floor. So if the interest rate is moving like this, the coupon payment will be only within the range of 5% and 8%. And this is an example of collar.
Every business is subject to the risk of changing interest rates, and these changes are unpredictable. Such exposure can either be on the liability side when the firm needs to pay interest on loans and bond issuance, or it could be on the asset side when the firm has some investment that is sensitive to changes in interest rate. However, it is possible to mitigate the effects of existing interest rate risk by using suitable hedging instrument, in this case being interest rate swap. An interest rate swap is an exchange of future interest receipts. It's essentially one stream of future interest payments in exchange for another. Each participant in the interest rate swap is referred to as a counterparty. Because they are trading over the counter, they are really just contracts set up between two or more parties to exchange the receipts, and thus it can be customized. The most common type of interest rate swap is the vanilla swap. In the vanilla swap, one party, the payer, agrees to pay a fixed rate interest payment, while the other party, the receiver, agrees to pay floating rate interest payment, which is usually tied to the LIBOR rate. In effect, the company is actually paying fixed rate payment, but its lender is still getting float rate payment, and vice versa for the counterparties. For a better understanding of how IRS works, let's assume that a firm currently borrows money from the bank at a floating rate MLR for 5 years, but has a strong view that the interest rate is on a rising trend. In this case, the firm can enter into an IRS agreement with the bank to swap the floating rate MLR to a fixed rate for 5 years. Thus, a rising interest rate will no longer affect the firm as it has already swapped its floating rate MLR to a known fixed rate. Note that the counterparty do not swap their actual interest payment, they simply agree to make payments to one another based on the rise and the fall of the floating interest rate. In this case, as MLR rises, the company saves 80,000 Thai baht. Although the firm can potentially make a large amount of money on IRS, the opposite can also take place. In this case, if the firm view is incorrect and the interest rate actually fall, it would lose the opportunity to enjoy paying a lower MLR floating rate for the remaining life of the loan contract. In other words, the firm will face mark-to-market loss on the existing IRS contract. Apart from the normal swap and option, company can enter into a swap option or swaption. The option to enter into an interest rate swap in an exchange for an option premium. The buyer would gain the right but not the obligation to enter into a specified swap agreement with the issuer on a specified future date. Under the same old example, when MLR increases and the firm gains from the swap, the firm would then exercise the option and gain 80,000 Thai baht minus the premium. However, if MLR decreases, the firm experiences a loss of entering into a swap. The company then chooses to walk away from the contract and lose only the option premium. Financial institutions use interest rate swap to manage credit risk, hedge potential losses, and earn income through speculations. While interest rate swaps are very complex, they allow financial institutions and corporations to manage debt and risk more effectively.
Hey guys, sorry I don't have time to do my usual awesome video today, so today is just a quick summary on interest rate hedging. As we know from my first video, interest rate hedging is super important in all aspects of business. Changes in interest rates can be deadly for some firms that are heavily exposed to interest rates. So guys, there are 4 main ways in which one can hedge interest rate risk. Number 1, forwards. It's probably the most basic interest rate management instrument, and it can be utilized using forward rate agreements. Number 2, futures. This is similar to a forward, but involves using intermediaries to reduce counterparty risk. Number 3, swaps, which is a series of forward contracts to change fixed to float or float to fixed rates. Number 4, options, cap, floor, and collar on interest rates that sets a maximum on interest rates, a minimum on interest rates, or a band of interest rates that the rates must be within, respectively. So remember, hedging interest rate risk is never really free, but the premium paid is generally worthwhile in case of unexpected shocks. So hedge, 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 or, well, take FN452 with Dr. Suti. Subscribe here, and give me a thumbs up. Thank you.